I'd like to start off by introducing David Smolsky, who is our timer. And David got involved last year because he was curious. And then we put him in to be timer and to help out with the whole thing. And Noreen Smith is our town moderator, and she's really an exemplary person, an example to all of us, fairness and kindness to everybody in town, and great knowledge. So we're delighted to have Noreen. I'm Kathleen Walker, if I didn't say so. The last thing I want to say is I want to thank those in the audience for being here, because you are the people that are curious and interested, and you really end up making the direction that this town goes in. And so I'm grateful for you to be here, and it's recorded so that people at home will see this also. But I'm especially honored and pleased to have these 6 candidates here, because as you all know, speaking in public is not the most fun thing to do, especially not in a Saturday evening. And also running for office, they're putting themselves out there. Every one of these 6 people, and all those who didn't show up, they're putting themselves out there for no real benefit to themselves. They don't get paid, they don't get thanks most of the time. They get yelled at a lot, and they care about the town, they care about Charlton. And that's why Diane's another one. Just want to mention. And that's why it's so important that they're here. And we're so grateful to them, because this is not easy what they're doing today or any other time. So with that, I'll turn it over to our esteemed moderator, Noreen, and enjoy.
Thank you, Kathleen, and let's give Kathleen a round of applause. Kathleen also made sure we have coffee and scones in the back, so if anybody needs to get up and help yourself to a refreshment, please do. I'm Noreen Johnson Smith, and I'm also a candidate for office, so I just full disclosure. I'm running unopposed, so I feel like it's okay that I am moderating. Were I in an opposed seat, I would not be moderating this forum. And at some point, I will also do my introduction along with all the other candidates. So just wanted to make sure people were aware. We did have, of the 19 candidates, everyone was invited to participate today. So I just want that to be clear. We did receive several written statements from candidates who were not able to be here. But because of the nature of sharing some statements and not others, and out of a sense of fairness to all the candidates, including those who came today, we're probably going to save those statements and allow the candidates to put that up on their own Facebook pages and share that information with the world in a different platform. So in terms of timing and just a general overall fairness, we're not going to be reading those today. But I do appreciate the candidates that took the time to think about what they want to express to the public and what their priorities are and why they felt it was so important for them to run for office. And I'm grateful for all 19 candidates for stepping up. And that's 19 more people who are going to be at town meeting coming up on May 15th. So please mark your calendars. This is not the only important day on our calendars, and we also have the election on May 6th. So you've got the 6th and the 15th in May, and then you can take a vacation for the summer. But our job as citizens is to make decisions in our community, and we don't just vote at the polls. We vote at the polls and at town meetings. So I'm putting a plug in for that. So we're going to start. First of all, David is our timer. As Kathleen mentioned, he has a bell. It's a very polite bell. It's not too loud. When you hear the ding-a-ling, please stop speaking, wrap up your sentence so that we can keep it moving along. Everyone will have a 3-minute opening statement, and this is your chance to say who you are, how long you've lived in town, a little bit about your personal life, if you'd like, and why you're running. And also why people should vote for you. So why you feel you should be elected to serve the town. We're going to start with candidates who are running in uncontested seats. So people who don't have a contested race are going to go first with their introductions, and then we're going to pause and take any questions we have for those candidates. And then we'll move into introductions of candidates in contested races. okay? And that allows the two here who are in uncontested races to join the audience after they've made their statements. So I'm going to start with Mike Benukowitz. Mike.
Hi, I'm Michael Benukowitz. I'm running for constable in the town of Charlton. I have lived in Charlton since 1987. We lived on Stafford Street, and it was, first of all, the best move we could have made because it's quiet up here. Where do I start? Well, I was a Worcester police officer for a couple of years, got hurt and had to leave. And I started a security company back in 1995, which I am glad to say I'm still going on and going strong. We've been working for 27 years. Most of my clients are long-term clients. One of them I'm really proud of is Worcester Academy. I've been there since the day I started my business. In town, I actually was coaching soccer for a number of years. First my son, then my daughter. Looking to try to get back with that too with my granddaughter because she's playing in town now also. I decided to become a constable because I'm starting to roll back in my time with work. I'm giving my time to my charge people and letting them run their part of the company. And I've got some time on my hands. And I just don't know what to do with empty time. So I want to fill it. And I felt this was a way of doing it. I know the business. I've got to brush up on a lot of it because a constable works with civil process as opposed to the police officer, which does the criminal process. There's a lot to be done with the town. When there's a town meeting, the constable is required to put up the notices for the meetings. Yeah, he does things like serving process for child support and divorce. He also does evictions. But there's a place for that. And that's what I want to try to place myself to help these people. I don't need to make money. Thank you. Thank you. I could give you a kiss for that right now.
Not on camera, please.
Thank you, Mike. And we're going to also ask Karen LaCroix to introduce herself, and then we'll come back and take questions for both Mike and Karen.
So I'm Karen LaCroix. I'm the town clerk of Charlton. I've lived in town for 33 years. I grew up in Marlboro. I'd like to thank Kathleen and Noreen for hosting yet again. It's a wonderful opportunity for everybody to be able to speak. So I've had the honor of being town clerk for the past 6 years, and I was the assistant town clerk for 7 years before that. I'm so thankful that I have Elise Cunningham and Jean Vincent as part of our team, and they're both amazing to work with, so I thank them so much. We finally have had a quieter year in the town clerk's office, which doesn't happen very often. I think it's probably the first one actually since I've been in there, because there always seems to be something added, a special election, special town meetings, but knock on wood, hopefully right now this is a quiet year, so it gives us time to kind of get caught up, and a lot of that administrative stuff we've kind of put on hold for a long time. The new state laws, election laws that have been added, have added a lot of work, extra work to our office, especially during midterms and presidential years. We had approximately 4,000 ballots that were mailed out during last fall's elections, and about 5,000 that were mailed out during the presidential. So that takes a lot of man hours to get the application processed, send out the ballot, log the ballot that it was sent, receive the ballot in, log the ballot that it was logged in, and then tabulate them after the election. So it takes a long time. For most of the changes the state has had, early voting has added a lot too. So some things have actually helped. Early voting does help us, in-person early voting, because that takes those people off of coming on election day. So it makes it a little bit easier. The newest change that will be made to our office this year will be the use of poll pads to check in at elections. So you've most likely seen those being used at town meeting for the past several years when you go to check in. And also, if you have done in-person early voting, we've used those there. And people love them, our poll workers love them. So we are going to use those at the election instead of paper check-in lists. So that will speed up the process at check-in. Just to let everybody know, because a lot of times we do get questions on, how our machinery works, just because, everything that's in, across the country of people questioning elections. Those machines are in no way attached to any kind of voting through the ballot at all. It's just a check-in. Instead of a paper list, it goes through this poll pad, which is an iPad actually. So those just contain the voters' names, their addresses, their party. There are no,
You're done.
I'm
We'll take
done.
a question.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Karen. That's okay. We can give you some. We can lob out some open-ended questions which allow people to expand on their responses. So, Steve, you have a question.
I do. What were you gonna say?
That's the most important part, because
2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2-minute response.
those poll pads have the cost of the poll pads have been used. The money has been from state unfunded mandate and uniform polling hours reimbursements from the state. So there's no cost to the taxpayers of Charlton for those. And the only other thing I was going to say was we now have 3,000 dogs. So everybody always asks me how many dogs we have. And thanks to COVID, we've gone from 2,800 to 3,000. So. And I appreciate you voting on these things.
All right, do we have questions for Mike or Karen? I have 2 questions received in advance. So we've asked in general for people to put your questions in writing and submit them to the moderator. So one question for Karen is, how do you ensure the public of the validity and security of our elections?
Well, I know we've had people that have come in when we do ballot testing. So ballot testing is we mark ballots, put tests on them, and we run them through our machines to make sure the number we've tabulated for each person on the ballot is the number that goes through the machine, so we know the machines are correct. We've had people that have come in and wanted to, anybody can come in, it's posted that when we're doing that. And they've asked, biggest concern people have is how those machines are, hooked to anything else outside of the tabulator itself, and they're not. It's just in the tabulator. It's not hooked to any kind of Wi-Fi. They're just within that machine itself. There's no way that anybody can get in. They're locked. They're under lock and key in our office. I think that's,
Good.
if anybody else has any questions on that.
Great, thank you. And just a second question, how can people or the public get involved and help with our local elections?
We do have poll workers that get appointed by the selectmen each year. That is something new that was through the state too, so we sent a list of them. Usually we get people who just, want to help out in some way, so they'll come in and ask us. We have just a basic application just to get some info from them. And then we'll add them to the list. We'll tell them what it entails, because an election day is, you have to get there like 6:30 a.m. and you probably don't leave until about 9. So as long as they're able to do that, You know, like I said, it's a quiet year this year. We do have a long list of people who have done it forever, and some of those people have had to leave. You know, they're getting older and can't do it. So we kind of always need to add new people into it. And we will sometimes put like a note on Facebook or on our town's website that we're looking for people. Next year is a presidential year, so, you know, there's 4 elections, and a lot of times you do have people, especially on Saturday election, that have things going on, so you do need to increase your list. So anytime anybody's interested, they're more than welcome to, you know, reach out to us and get on our list. And you get paid minimum wage. We do have a few people actually do it. They volunteer, so.
Thank you. All right, we did not have a question raised for the constable, but I will say that that role is very important at town meeting, to have additional people to help with the flow of the meeting, if there's an issue with the microphones or people's queuing, to ask questions or behavior. And so we count on our constables to be present at the town meeting, and look forward to working with you. All right, and then I'll just offer my brief statement. Noreen Johnson Smith. I've lived in Charlton for 31 years with my husband John down on Dresser Hill Road, and ran for office 3 years ago for the first time in my life. And I was very happy that it happened during COVID, because we had masks on while we were standing on the street, and you couldn't hear what I was saying. Because it was so uncomfortable being out on the street with a sign of myself and waving at people. But really happy to have served the town the last 3 years, and trying to make sure that our meetings are run well, that we follow procedure, that everyone who wants to speak has an opportunity to speak. Doesn't matter whether I agree with them or not. I think we all need to learn to listen to each other better, and that this pandemic has shown us the impact of isolation and social media on our communication. And so it's so important for us to come together to make decisions, hear from each other, consider what we're each saying, and then vote. And so that's the format that I've adhered to in town meeting. In between, the other responsibility of the town moderator is to appoint the finance committee. I do that with an eye for gender equity. I've recruited several women to the finance committee in my last 3 years. We don't quite have balance, but we have tremendous talent from the men and the women who serve in voluntary roles on FinCom. And that's an annual process of interviewing candidates, looking for people that represent all 4 precincts in town, so that we have some balance in terms of how we're viewing the investments and the changes that are impacted by the budget. So that's been my role. I'd love to serve another 3 years. Have a busy life myself outside of this, with 4 children who are all grown. So like Mike, I have just enough time to do this part of the job, and then I work full-time elsewhere outside the town. So thank you. And I'm happy to take questions, but I didn't receive any for town moderator, so full disclosure. Yes, Del?
There was a recent court case dealing with rules set at meetings where a community actually lost, or were informed that their rules were unconstitutional because it limited a person's free speech based on words they chose to use. Some people might find certain words offensive. Are you aware of that?
Yes,
case?
yeah, there's multiple cases.
Because it may change the way people behavior at town meeting or any kind of other situation that a constable might use to make decisions as to how to handle a situation. But just want to make sure you're up to date on those issues.
Yeah, the moderator position requires study, I will say. It took a lot of homework between the first election and the first town meeting. I think I had 3 weeks to prep, and I studied the manual, which is town meeting time. Those are our parliamentary procedures, and also studied Mass General Law as it pertains to town meeting, because we're navigating the combination of those two in running the meeting. So often you'll see me stop and consult with council, town council, who sits to my right at the meeting, just to make sure we're staying within the parameters defined both by Mass General Law and town meeting time. That said, in both of those documents, which serve as guiding principles for town meeting, the moderator is the last word. So when you elect a moderator, you're electing someone for their judgment, because the moderator controls whether people are allowed to speak and how long they're allowed to speak, what they're allowed to speak on, using their professional judgment of what falls within the four corners of the article being discussed. So there is, I do participate actively with the Mass Moderators Association. We have an online forum, which is, most moderators around the state are lawyers, and they're a very helpful resource to those of us who are not lawyers, but we debate daily different nuanced questions from towns all over Massachusetts of how they're handling certain procedures in preparation for town meeting, post-town meeting. We do debriefings. So I do stay up on the science of the meeting. Thank you. All right. So I can allow the two unopposed candidates to please join the audience, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, now we are turning to candidates who are running for contested seats. So these are individuals who may be incumbents, may be new to the position, are being challenged in a position, and for whom the voters have a choice in this election. Of course, for the uncontested seats, you can always vote with your marker. If you don't like the candidate, you don't have to fill in the blank. So that also is a way to signal your approval or disapproval of a candidate. So you still always have a choice, but in this case, you'll have a choice between candidates. So each candidate will be offered 3 minutes to make an opening statement, and then we'll respond to questions that have been submitted in advance. And at the end, because each of you is in a contested race, you'll have a chance to make a 2-minute closing statement. Okay? All right, let's start with Ms. Ridlack.
Hi, I'm Patsy Ridlack, and I'm running for selectman. I've been a selectman for the last 3 years. I'm married with 4 children, aged from 6 to 26. Aging as well. My oldest, Kendall, went all the way through our schools and has since then graduated from Westfield State. Maggie attends Heritage, Lily is in middle school, and Adam attends Sherry Hill. You may know my husband Jack, one of my kids, from church, soccer, scouts, Irish dance, air patrol, and now riding lessons are involved. I'm an active member of our community and have been for years. Currently, I am a CCD teacher at St. Joe's for my daughter's 2nd grade class. My kids will be making their first communion this year on election day. So if you don't see me in the morning, I need to be there with my class and my child. I'm a member of the Old Home Day Committee, the Fay Mountain Farm Committee, and the Senior Community Center Committee. I am an assistant scoutmaster for Troop 338, and I'm honored to be part of the awesome team that formed the first female VSA troop in Charlton. I am currently training to become a Charlton CERT member, which stands for Community Emergency Response Team. And what they do is they get called out. They're looking if there's a 3-alarm fire, or they'll bring us in to help the officers in the case of emergencies. I have an MBA and my CIA, which stands for Certified Internal Auditor. I work full-time as the Compliance Audit Manager at the University of Massachusetts. I am surprised at how many people ask me if I'm Republican or Democrat. I believe that has little to do with town politics, but I'll share that I am a registered independent, and I'm rather fiscally conservative and believe in lean, efficient, effective government. I believe in balance and fall somewhere in the middle politically. I believe in smart growth. We need revenue. However, we must not sell our town just to the highest bidder. Doing adequate community impact studies and financial analysis needs to be standard practice. Last time I ran, I said I was running on transparency and fact-based decision making. This is still true. However, now when I think about it, I'm running because I feel like I can represent the town well. The organizations I'm involved in expose me to an incredible amount of residents. from the seniors and families in church to the scout families to the most active members of our community who I sit with committees on. I listen to them and I try to reflect their opinions in my votes. I love Charlton and I want to be part of its governance. I want to set an example for my children to play an active role in the community around us. And I ask for your vote on May 6th.
All seconds, fair.
You practiced. That
I
was
did, I
great.
did.
Thank you. So Patricia Ridlack is running against, as the incumbent, against Peter Lancet. So these are the seats that will appear on the ballot, the candidates together for the same seat, just to make it clear. Peter?
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, Charlton. Thank you all for putting this together, and thank you all for being here and those watching. My name is Pete Lancet. I've been in Charlton 17 years come June. We moved here based on the school system. So we moved out of Auburn, wanted to come to a town where it had a good school system, more rural. My wife was 8 months pregnant. Currently we have 2 kids. We were married. Both of my kids are at Shepherd Hill. One's a freshman, one's a junior. I firmly believe for the sustainability of the town, we have to continue to invest in our school system. For my educational preparedness, I have a master's in business administration. I have a master of science in nursing. I have over 30 years experience in the healthcare system, 20 years as a bedside nurse, and then 10 years moving into administration. In 2019, I retired from the Army. I served 26 years. I had multiple combat deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you ask me why am I running, the town was so supportive during my deployments for my family. I want to pay it forward and use my experience, my education, and pay it back to the town. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make my job easy.
Yes.
Very easy. All right.
To the point.
And next, Ken.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Kenny LaFerriere. I'm running for the one-year seat in the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee. I have deep roots here in the community. I was born and raised in Dudley. Don't hold that against me. A proud Shepherd Hill graduate, where I met my wife, Kim, who was born and raised in Charlton. Like many others, we have wanted to make this community our home because of the great schools. I'm proud to say that I have 2 boys enrolled in our schools and elated that they will receive the same quality education that my wife and I did. I bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. I previously served 3 years on the school committee, and I've served on school councils both at Charlton Elementary School and Shepherd Hill. My prior school committee experience has given me a solid foundation of the budget process, understanding the many facets of a regional school system. During my last year as a school committee member, which ended last May of 2022, I was the chair of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. I made a point to attend almost all Board of Selectmen and FinCom meetings between both communities to advocate for the district's budget needs, while also taking time to listen and understand of the budget challenges that each town continues to face. Additionally, I was a member of the Capital and Safety Subcommittee, working on initiatives to improve the safety of all 7 schools, as well as working on the beginning stages of replacement of the roofs at the 2 middle schools. I'm currently still involved with our schools as the chair of the Dudley Charlton Special Education Parent Advisory Council, better known as the Dudley Charlton CPAC. This is an advocacy group for caregivers to learn about our special education programs and provide resources and trainings with the goal to help parents and caregivers be prepared so they can advocate for their child. It's imperative that the district provide a quality education for all our students. My wife and I are excellent examples of what happens when children receive a high-quality education. The experiences and knowledge gained here have been invaluable as we moved on to college and our careers. My wife is a nurse, and I'm a hospital liaison working with New England Donor Services, the organization tasked with coordinating organ and tissue donation in the region and getting people the life-saving transplants that they need. One of the most important aspects of my career is building relationships, connecting with people, and listening to all perspectives. These are all vital characteristics when collaborating with our 2 communities, most especially surrounding the budget. With the serious budget challenges that this year, it is imperative that someone with budget experience return to the table to ensure we can avoid reductions in staff and programs which will negatively affect our students while also being respectful of the challenges in both towns. Thank you for listening, and I respectfully ask for your vote on Saturday, May 6th, and I will be glad to meet you at the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. So on the ballot, Kenny is running against Nicole Enberg. And Nicole is a self-employed tax preparer who sent her regrets, but it's tax season, so she couldn't be here today. She also offered a statement and refers voters to her Facebook page. So thank you, Kenny, and that's a one-year seat on the school committee.
Correct.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Steve?
Okay. Well, I want to start off by thanking everyone for coming, and certainly the group for putting this together. If anybody doesn't know who I am, I'm Steve Coronis. 3 years now on the Board of Selectmen. This year I'm chairperson. I enjoy it. People often ask, why are you doing this? Why do you make the time commitment? It's pretty simple. My son, I've lived in town 22 years. My son was born and raised here. He's off to college now, just graduated. The town was so good with us, between youth sports and everything else over the years. It's a very easy decision to make. You want to give your time back. As far as I consider myself, and I think my record would stand for that, that I'm fiscally conservative. I don't like to spend money we don't have. And there were decisions that we made through the course of the last 3 years. It was really, I enjoyed it a lot. It was really an educational experience as well. If selectmen have a different view of the horizon than actual voters in town do, we can see it's almost like I look at it as like an air traffic controller. People come in, they want to build a new senior center, they want to do this, but we see the planes landing and they're thirsty for fuel, right? And they're looking for money. So some of those decisions, although they're hard ones to make, they're not always popular, but there are reasons behind that we make those. And especially in the next, I would say in the next 2-3 years, those decisions are going to get even harder. The town is going through some great growth, but those planes will not end stacking up with the school department. Those planes are Shepherd Hill. There are going to be some hard decisions to be made. It's going to take the experience to do that. When I first started last time, I don't know what time I should have been counting myself. Huh? All right. When I first started, last year, about 3 years ago when I ran, I witnessed 5 years prior to that 2 failed public safety building requests. It was very clear that the town didn't want to spend money. They didn't want to rely on 80% of the homeowners. The homeowners paying 80% of the tax bill. So we had to do something for economic. So my pledge was to start that back up, because they hadn't met 2 years prior to that. That was successful. I was very lucky on my first day when I sat down with Town Administrator Golis. That was absolutely his vision as well. So now with EDC, it's a super talented group of smart people. They're getting things rolling. You can see things happening. Obviously, that little building on the hill, you can see that happening. And then all that's going to fill in around that. Last week, we had an EDC meeting with the Oval, sponsored by the Oval. But that had realtors, commercial and residential, from all over the town. The pitch was Charlie. So the common, with the blend of economic growth and tax incentives. Thank you. Please vote for me on May 6th.
Thank you. We're going to come back to economic development most definitely for Board of Selectmen. I'm going to start with the school board candidate and then go back, and we'll go back and forth between school and Board of Selectmen so you don't feel like you're being grilled. So for the school board, we received a question. What are your top 3 priorities for the Dudley Charlton School District?
So in my view, the top 3 priorities need to be surrounding the budget, policy, and evaluating and overseeing the superintendent administration. Those are the 3 focused goals of the school committee members per Mass General Law. In my view, the biggest, most important thing that we need to be discussing and continue to build relationships on is the budget. It needs to be more in engagement with Board of Selectmen, with FinCom. School committee members need to be going to those meetings, both communities. And the Board of Selectmen and FinCom come to us, and they have, and so come to the school committee. So relationship building and having the conversation with Board of Selectmen, with FinCom, and school committee to figure out what we want to do. Just let's have the conversation. Everybody doesn't want to talk about cuts. Everybody doesn't want to talk about raising taxes. Everybody doesn't want to talk about whatever it is. We have to have the conversation and figure out where we want to go as a community. So I think there needs to be more discussion with that, and policy building is very important as well, to set the stage and the direction of the schools and where we want to go as a community. So that would be my response, is to make sure that we're holding the superintendent accountable, setting policy, and budget. Thank you.
Thank you. On a related note to the Board of Selectmen candidates, in your view, what is the importance of a high-quality public school system to the community? And I'll start with you, Steve, and we'll work our way up to Nancy.
I think it's imperative. It's definitely there in the top three. When people look to move in the community, we've heard it a few times today, they look at schools, they look at public safety, they look at roads, and they look at if they're smart enough, they look at the overall stability of the town. But schools is a definite, schools and public safety are definitely in the top two.
Thank you. The school system, as I said in my opening, is imperative. As a hospital CEO, I look at the ROI and everything, and I think our school system is an investment in our return, and it's just valuable for our return on investment, from housing values to our development, to economic development. I think it all funnels around our school system, and having a strong school system will bring sustainability to the town of Charlton and be able to have us the opportunity for further economic development and to be able to further plan and fund other operational needs in the town. So absolutely.
Thank you. Nancy?
I mean, of course, the schools are very important. When a family is moving to town, that's the first thing they do. They're researching the specifics for the school. I think that's a balanced priority with public safety. We have to keep all of our citizens safe. We want a great school system, and we just have to work with balance and fund them, as they're needed.
So I'm going to stick with the Board of Selectmen for a minute on this one, because we have a second related question, that given that the school system and funding for the schools is a top priority for all three candidates, what is your 5-year plan to address the town budget, considering that every year there is a shortfall in funding the school budget? We'll start with Steve and work our way up.
Well, it goes back to growth. We know that there's going to be an increase in the school department year. I think that there's certainly this year, I thought there needs to be better communication between the school committee and the selectmen, because I actually kind of felt we got caught off guard. As far as a 5-year plan, can you tell me what the school budget's going to be in 5 years?
I'm not currently on
No,
this.
I know. Yeah, it's a hard. We certainly want to fund it. We certainly want to be able to do it. But there's other projects and things as well. But the schools are a priority. Everybody knows that. I don't think that's a difficult question. Without knowing, would we fund it? Yes. But communication is key. And I don't think we had that this year. No. Yeah.
So Pete.
Yeah, given our current trajectory, I can only assume that the school budget's going to go up, and we need to figure out how we want to get there. Nobody's going to be supportive of raising taxes, so what are our other options? I think we need to turn to economic development and look at expanding our tax base. So, we have a nice Route 20 project going down there that's going to add more accessibility. Yes, we do have Amazon, but one of the other large movements in the state right now is our life sciences. They're totally congested the 495 area, so they're moving westward. You look around Worcester, there's a ton of construction for life sciences. Do we have opportunity to attract that sector to Charlton? I think we have a hand up with UMass purchasing the Harriman systems, because we're strategically, right between Southbridge, Webster, and Worcester, so we have a great opportunity just by our location, so I think economic development is the way we need to look, smart.
And Patsy?
So as EDC, very important, we have to attract companies, and I think we're working toward that. We're bringing water in, because revenue is always key. But I'll take a step back and say, I think that we have a problem that both the school and the town they didn't do the small increases probably over the last decade, maybe a little bit longer. So I think we have to communicate with the schools and both plan to work together to provide that funding to the school. All of a sudden, it isn't fair to say all of a sudden we need a big increase. We should have kind of done small increases. And I think, again, we should all work together, the school committee and all the boards, to plan those increases. I think our taxes are very low and nobody wants to ever hear that we need to increase taxes, but we do slowly need to. Look at us compared to other towns. We have lots of needs. So again, as we work with the EDC to bring in more revenue, we also need to, we are a veteran community and we can't be like Auburn where we get so much commercial revenue. We don't have that yet. So again, a balance.
Thank you. So given that the school budget is so important to the town and does require so many resources and is a priority for our school committee candidate, what do you see as the most and the least important areas of the school budget?
So I would say one of the most important areas of the school budget is our staff. Everybody in the schools that work for the district. I think it's the people within the organizations that make the organization great and make it what it is. And so supporting the people and keeping the staff employed at a bare minimum, and supporting the staff with their needs, and it will support student growth, student perspectives, and student educational experiences. And I would say that there needs to be discussion and conversation, like I said earlier. It is concerning to me that the school district has made cuts every year for at least the past 5 to 7 years. There's not been a year when they have had growth, added programs, added instructional materials without cuts. And so I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and I'm not saying that we turn around and cut public safety or cut other things, but it's a conversation that is concerning to me that the schools are always being asked to cut. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry. The second part was the least most important?
The most and the least important areas of the school budget. So I think the question is really about priorities. When you have to make those decisions to cut, or you're looking to grow, where are those
Yeah,
priorities?
that's a great question, and I don't run out of time. My apologies. Thank you. So the other area to keep in mind is making cuts is there's only so much areas they can cut. Everybody talks about central office being overstaffed and having too much administration, and that's just frankly not true. There is nowhere to cut, and so now it's getting into the classroom, and that's what we want to avoid. So we're at the point now this year that it's going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. And we all have to manage our budgets. We all, live in households and have to figure out how much can we spend of what we have, how much should we be saving, where are we allocating those dollars. So we have a good question for the Board of Selectmen, and this one I'm going to start with Patsy. So without, the individual is hoping to get a clear response from the Board of Selectmen candidates relative to that comment about public safety. So I've heard in meetings as well with the Board of Selectmen, well, we can cut everything, but we can never cut public safety. So is public safety a sacred cow? Are some departments more important than others? So police, fire, and EMS seem to be in a separate class all their own, with their funding and budgets paramount to all others. Some people in town also feel similarly, but would include education and the schools in that. Others feel as though there are no sacred cows and everything should be up for debate all the time. So what is your feeling relative to public safety, school funding, and the notion of a protected category or department? Patsy?
I am always for public safety when we need it, but I think as the town changes and new businesses come in, looking at the residents of our town, that we may be able to cut public safety. We don't know. You have to kind of look as you're moving forward to assess that. Is there a better technology to cut some of our costs with fire? Or again, you can't say. The school, I honestly do think we haven't done a very good job of funding our schools. I think, like I said before, we should have had small increases over the last decade, so we wouldn't be where we are today. But I don't think we really have any sacred things that we can't cut. It's just based on the needs of that budget, based on the needs of the residents.
And so I'm going to do a follow-up question as we go down the line, because I think everyone's going to wind up with my same follow-up question. And that is, so looking ahead with what you know about the town needs and the budgets, what would you expect in terms of funding for public safety in the schools? Is there a general sense you have of areas that need to have cuts made, or areas where we know we have growth?
I can tell you that I've looked at this budget often, years, and we run a lean town. There isn't much fat, as you can say. The last meeting we had, or the meeting before, we cut all of the stipends for town officials. It was about $50,000. It helped fund our firemen. So we work hard to. Did I just go on a tangent? To work on the budget, and then we keep on talking about revenue. We have new revenue. We have Amazon. We'll have other companies that sort of are Amazon should attract other companies. So we will have slow growth. We will have growth, smart growth, and we'll continue to look at the budget.
Great, thank you. Pete, some members feel that public safety, police, fire, EMS are in a separate class, all their own. Funding and budgets are paramount to all others, and no department is as important. Others feel that education is in that same pool, and others feel like there are no sacred cows. What are your feelings on the budget?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As a hospital CEO, I deal with competing priorities all the time. I look at our public safety as a pinnacle of our town. We have to have that infrastructure in place to be a healthy town, and I'll explain a little bit about that. So right now, with the advances in healthcare, definitive care is at UMass University. So anytime our EMS responds to an incident and they can assess it's chest pain, it's a stroke, it's this, they're making that run for definitive care to UMass, which is saving lives. So you look about that turnaround time in that run town, they're gone for maybe an hour, 2 hours for that turnaround time. We only have 2 ambulances. So you get both those ambulances at UMass, then you're waiting for mutual aid. So, at what point do we put the cost of lives on the line where we're going to say, oh, we're going to cut fire, we're going to cut police? The same thing, we look at all the fentanyl that's in the area. The police are busy. Between the police and fire, they're busy. I think we need to look at everything, make sure we have the actual infrastructure in place, and focus on economic development to broaden our tax bases.
Okay, so knowing, I'm doing the same follow-up, everybody gets the same grill. Knowing that the budget is tight and that the schools aren't getting what they have asked for, and that there are areas that we're struggling to support, are there areas in your estimation where cuts need to be made, or are there other areas where the budget should be growing?
I don't necessarily think I agree we're running lean. I think we need to optimize our processes. I'm also a Lean Six Sigma black belt, so looking for those efficiencies, decreasing waste in processes is a potential area where we could find some savings.
Thank you. Steve, do you want me to repeat? It was a long question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So some current Board of Selectmen members feel that public safety, police, fire, and EMS are in a separate class all their own, and their funding and budgets are paramount to all others, and no other department is as important. Some include education in that and the schools in their top tier of priorities. Others feel there are no sacred cows and everything is up for debate all the time. How do you feel?
I actually think there's no such thing as a sacred cow, depending on the fiscal stability of the town. Economic growth, we're absolutely going to need it. Or we're going to have to increase taxes. What we try to do is really avoid that override. Right? So fire EMS, just like I was saying earlier, selectmen have a little more of a view on how busy the police are. And there's been an uptick in crime and drugs they're finding. With our new police dog, fire EMS, they're out all the time. I have a stare at home, I'm listening to it. Every time I hear a siren go by, and so I know they're busy. As far as schools, yes, they're going to need their funding as well. After our last selectmen's meeting, when we decided to meet the school committee at a $1.9 million number from their $2.2 million ask. The next morning, I chimed into the school committee finance subcommittee meeting on Zoom. They asked me to talk a little bit. And Stephen Lamar said, you know what, that 1.9 is a world. So it's a negotiation process. It would be a lot better if we knew that before fall town meeting, that we were going to double the assessment was going to be doubled. Towns typically try to stay, well, the state makes us do that. We have our assessment when our state Chapter 70 funding went down because the town is pretty healthy. So that's how we went to 2.2 million to 1.9 originally. So we're being held victims of our own success. So how do it's going to go back down economic growth. An override, in my opinion, is there was a failure along the way that he had to do that.
Thank you. Our school committee member. Are there any school committee decisions that you have disagreed with over the past year? And if so, what would you have done differently and why?
So, I can't say there was a specific decision that I disagreed with overall, but I do think that we are missing an opportunity to engage and collaborate with the Board of Selectmen, with FinCom, and being more involved. Believe me, I know this is a volunteer position. I did it for 3 years already, and I know it's a lot of work. But I do think it's required and incumbent upon the elected school committee members to be present at the Board of Selectmen meetings, FinCom. And that's not just Charlton. Yes, this is a Charlton representative seat, but it's important of all the members to negotiate and have these discussions with our Dudley colleagues and our colleagues in Charlton. So I see that as an area of improvement that more attendance is needed. I took it upon myself to make sure I was at every meeting I could get at, in both towns. I was sometimes hitting this Board of Selectmen meeting in Charlton, and then I'd go to Dudley the following week and make sure I got to those and had those conversations and continue to talk about the budget. I don't think we're talking about the budget enough as a community. We should be starting that conversation in September and continuing that and liaison and discuss it. Just even if it's a 20-minute thing on the Board of Selectmen agenda. Hey guys, how you doing? What do you think we're at? What do you think? And we talk about the budget and have those conversations. I think we need to do more of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to the Board of Selectmen. I'm going to start with Pete this time. Pete, name 3 things you would do as an elected select person to positively impact economic development along the Route 20 corridor.
Yeah, exactly. Leadership is both a science and an art. So we have to evaluate the data and then bringing appropriate development that's good for our community. So it's not just attract any business. We want to be selective in the business that comes in. I know we've gone a long way with our water lines. We still have some more work to do because right now those water lines cannot support fire trucks. So I think we need to invest in that infrastructure. The same with our sewer system. Right now our sewer is almost at capacity. Any further development, we have to look at those. So I think A, is looking at our infrastructure, B, being selective in which economic development, which sectors we bring in, you know, and C, I think we have to get out with the community and see what the community wants us, which direction us to go.
Great, thank you. Steve, you want to go next, and then we'll give Patsy the final word.
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of history with economic development in Charlton for the last 3 years. Even the Overlook had us in maybe a month and a half ago. This isn't the meeting with the real estate agents, that was 2 weeks ago. And the Overlook, because I look at Amazon as like an anchor store, like they wouldn't have built the Auburn Mall if they didn't have Macy's and Sears, right? So Amazon is like an anchor. You could have 800 employees there. They're gonna fill up the Yankee Diner pretty quick. Like it's just, but there's 19 schools, right? So there's gonna be restaurants, there's gonna be things, things are gonna happen. And the Overlook is also reacting to that. And they're looking to, they own 400 acres. All the way down the hill, down to Route 20. They were asking our economic development group about what they could do. They're thinking apartments, more senior living, retail, storefronts, even on the Overlook. So they want to get our feel on it, and now they're looking for financing on it. And they've got pretty deep pockets, so there's a lot going on in that quarter. I think it's going to be, it'll come together. It's just a matter of, as far as being selective, I don't know. Yeah, we have to be selective, but we have to know who they are first, right? We're not going to say no to anybody without a tough question. I think it'll happen.
Thank you. Pat?
Would you please repeat the question?
I'm just about to. Name 3 things you would do as an elected select person to positively impact economic development along the Route 20 corridor.
I think we're actually doing these things, but we continue with ensuring that we have water. That's what kept us behind for many years, and it's moving ahead. Our water and sewer department, and of course Amazon, we're sort of moving ahead on that. I think that we have a good process for when developers come in and talk to our town hall. I think the board, as it is, we've been working diligently to make sure that when developers come to our town, they know who to go to, and they get to sit with the whole team. So all their questions, if what they're doing doesn't work, they're told there's no wasting time. All the boards working together, planning, Board of Health, conservation. I think again the town does a very good job welcoming them in. And then of course supporting our EDC. They're doing a great job. The website is so much cleaner. They have all this new marketing, and we're already doing all these things, but I guess we could maybe push a little bit harder.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to the next question, and I'm keeping track of the order here. So we're going to go Patsy, Steve, Pete on this one. Patsy, first, how will you handle passionate disagreement during select board meetings?
Sometimes that happens. I think we work things out, and honestly, it's the majority of the board. So you can disagree all you want. It's the majority wins. I think yelling and screaming and getting upset or any of that, it's not my style. We compromise, and if you've watched our meetings, we do. I don't think there's very many votes that happen every once in a while that we talk about the issues in detail and sort of come to a compromise.
Thank you. All right. Steve, how will you handle passionate disagreements during select board meetings?
You can almost look at the video for that, but I enjoy passionate discussions because it's proving that we really care and we're passionate about it. Things get a little out of hand. Sometimes I feel like I want to have a rubber Nerf bat or something. Yeah, maybe, but the board we have now, if we do argue and debate, at the end of the meeting, it's like it never happened, right? You people bring up they listen to their constituents, and there are different arguments going back and forth. I think it's just part of democracy. It's healthy to have it. You can't just stifle everybody. But some of it is amusing. I like it. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know if there's anything else we could do different. I have a now, but
Thank you. Pete, how would you handle passionate disagreement?
Yeah, passionate disagreement, we couldn't ask for any more. I mean, we need passionate, that stimulates new ideas. The resolution part's the tricky part, so, you know, as the board is structured, each person's 20% of that, so obviously you go with the majority. But if you don't have passion, then you can't have lively discussion. So I think it's all about maintaining a respectful environment and listening to people out, being open-minded, and, you know, maybe go change your position based on the evidence or people's feelings on a topic.
Thank you. All right, back to Kenny. This is our final question, is what do you feel is the most important issue facing the school committee in this coming year, and how would you like to see it addressed? The number one issue.
I can only pick one.
Only one.
There's a lot of just things going to be happening. This coming year, in my view, as I've said before, we're going to continue to have budget challenges as a community, as a district, as a school district. Related to that would be the upcoming project for renovation of Shepherd Hill. The school has been enrolled and accepted by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and that's going to be coming up. The selectmen have talked about it, and they know it's coming as far as requesting a potential debt exclusion at some point. That's going to be the number one priority, in my view, only to be able to sell it to the voters of both communities. The key here is if we do not move forward, we lose 50% of the costs. Approximately 50-55% of the cost will be picked up by the state. And so I can't see us not moving forward on the project and just giving, you know, not taking those funds from the state. Why should we pay for 100% of the cost? Let's get some support from state leaders. So that's going to be one of the biggest priorities over the next year or two to be able to get to the feasibility study and get to the point of shoveling the ground. But that is related to budget, and we're going to have both operational costs as well as capital costs that are going to be coming up. I share in the mindset of we've put a lot of these things and kicked the can down the road for many, many years, and it's now coming up all at once, which is unfortunate, especially with the capital needs. The moves at Charlton Middle and Dudley Middle will be corrected, which is great, but that isn't the end of the capital needs for the district. So there's going to be more to come. So it's all related to financial and budget. The costs are the number one priority in my view. Thank you.
Thanks.
Saved your step, Dave.
We're going to have the same question for the Board of Selectmen. We're going to go Pete, Patty, and Steve. Patsy. So Pete, first question for you. What do you feel is the most important issue facing the town and the Board of Selectmen in the coming year? Just one issue, and how do you want to see it addressed?
The one issue is our budget. I mean, obviously, everything that we've talked about today comes back to the budget. So if you had to identify, you know, point to one direction, it's obviously the budget.
How would you like to see it addressed?
So I think we need to approach it from multiple angles. We have to look at what our operational needs are going to be, what our capital needs are going to be, what our projected income is going to be, and what are our solutions to that. So, you know, as a town, we're going to have to do some soul searching and decide what kind of community do we want to be. Do we want to be that 5-star resort, or do we want to be that 1-star dump? So, you know, obviously we're going to be somewhere in the middle, and we have to, you know, sharpen our pencils, come together, and figure out how do we get there. You know, my personal opinion, I'm not for raising taxes. I think the key is through economic development.
Patsy?
I mean, budget, of course. It's always an issue. We have a low tax rate, and we're growing and we have needs. And so, and how we can fix that is obviously attract more revenue. We have EDC, we have, they're working hard. We will have growth. Hopefully that growth will be stronger than the need side. And that's it. I mean, all you can do is either cut expenses or increase revenue to budget. It's pretty black and white. So, and we're running lean, so there's no, we have to increase our revenue. With 20, we have a lot of opportunity to do that.
Steve?
Well, it's, you know, it's absolutely budget. I mean, we're talking about budget every single selectmen's meeting. Economic development, yeah, we talked about that, that's a common conversation, okay? The most important, again, we can see those planes coming into land. You know, one might be a fire station, fire substation, small one, 4 bay. One's gonna be Shepherd Hill, that could cost the town $30 million. Yeah. And that's probably 3 years out. So how do we plan for that? As you know, as Amazon comes in, we also still have to fund our public safety group. Station 2 is about to fall down. It'll probably collapse in the next few years. So there's hard decisions, and everybody really needs to understand that. If we don't get economic growth, there's only one other avenue we have to raise taxes. But nobody, there's not an appetite right now on our board that I see for any type of growth. And not to say that it's not a possibility in 3 years if we don't continue our growth.
Thank you.
Okay.
So all three of you have mentioned big ticket items and really important funding. And then there are smaller items in our budget that are just as important to other residents in the community. One of them we're sitting in today at the public library. So we have a question, which is, what is the importance of the public library to our community in your view? And in what way will you support it? I'm going to start with Steve.
It's a beautiful building, it's a beautiful library. A lot of people, everybody I talk to, they use it, admire it, adore it. It's not a, it certainly would be a, we've put a lot of money into this building in the last few years too. We need some ARPA money for it. It's strongly support libraries.
Thank you. Nancy?
I agree. All of my kids grew up here, using the kids' book section. They still, my husband especially still brings my 8-year-old. The library is maybe the center of the community. They host all sorts of our not-for-profits. They hold their meetings here, and I think we need to fund it. Obviously, we need to be frugal with it, but absolutely. And it's funny, we throw around, the school district will say, we're gonna get rid of full-day kindergarten, and then we'll get rid of the library, but those are just shock factors. I think that everybody on the board appreciates our library and will continue to support it.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, I think the library is a valuable asset in our community. I might be dating myself, but many of times with Miss Molly and story hour with the kids. So I mean, it's just a vital part of our community that we need to figure out how to fund.
Thank you. We've covered all of the questions I've received online, and in the absence of other burning questions from the audience, I'm going to allow each of the candidates to make a 2-minute closing statement. But we have hands from the audience, so Ms. Kathleen.
Thank you. I have actually personal questions for all 4 candidates, if I can do that. They're a little bit different.
Do you have them in writing, Kathleen, for the?
I don't have, I was just writing them down, but I just, basically I wanted to hear from Stephen Katzy why they feel that his second term on the Board of Selectmen is going to help the town, what they've learned and why that's necessary.
And is there a question for Pete in there also?
Yeah, the question for Pete is why he's currently serving on the Board of Health, if he were to be, he has another year to go, if he were to be elected to select person, would he serve on both boards? And my question to Kenny is, he lost his last election, and he's back again. And where does he get the drive and the impetus to take that on again? It's very admirable.
Okay, so we're going to do all questions through the moderator, which is the general format for a moderated meeting. So I'll take those questions, Kathleen, and start with the two incumbent select board candidates and ask what you feel you hope to accomplish or why you're interested in the second term. What's the motivation?
To answer your question, you're going to take up my 2-minute closing. That's exactly what I was going to say. I really, well, again, I do this because I love the town. It was a learning curve, you know, when you come in. It's not a course lesson that's with being a selectman. There's so many different avenues. So then, you know, depending on how hard you work at it, I'd say the first good part of the first year is a learning curve, and then the experience comes from that, and then it gets a whole lot easier. I enjoyed it a lot. I think I've done a really good job. Can't make everybody happy, but I think I make a few people happy. Right? I try to make some of the meetings a little light, and I'm this is going to be my 2-minute closing, but I'm really humbly asking for your vote on May 6th.
Thank you. Patsy.
I think we have a strong board, and we work together well, and we've certainly made, I feel, very good decisions. And I always make fun of myself. I was on the planning board for 16 years, and between that and 3 years as selectman, I understand how the town hall works and how boards work together. Understand how developers come in, and I think that in itself is a very strong basis to be on the board and to make educated decisions.
Thank you. And same question for Pete, slightly different.
Yeah, so I actually reached out to the State Ethics Commission, and they did grant me permission to stay on dual boards, but there is a town bylaw that prohibits that. So it's up to the town on that. And, you know, essentially, you know, taking my experience on the board has driven me to want to progress to the Board of Selectmen because of a lot of the challenges that we have coming up here with our town dumps. There's big problems or big decisions that need to be coming up with the closure of the dumps, our PFAS testing, our water and our sewer. You know, they're in place, but they're reaching capacity. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider that the Board of Health is maybe aware of in the infrastructure in our town.
Thank you. And Kenny, the question for you is, you served on the school board previously, you ran last time. What has given you the drive and passion to return and run again?
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Kathleen. I've had many people come to me and say, "What are you, nuts? You're doing this again?" And I'm doing it again because I have passion and love for our community and love for our schools. My wife and I, as I said, are graduates of the school district, and so it gives me great pride to be able to pay it forward. I received a quality education, and I want the children of this community to also receive a quality education. The other thing to keep in mind is when I was elected to the school committee in 2019, that was May of 2019, and then the COVID hit March of 2020. So the majority of the time on the school committee was all 90% of it was related to COVID and the shutdown and remote learning, and so I really want to get on there and do the real work and the good work and the budgeting and you know, to keep our schools solid. And additionally, last year, as everybody noticed here in town, in Dudley too, the election for school committee was very divisive and very negative, and there's no need for that. There's no need to be so angry and so divisive. I know nationally there is that anger happening, but let's try not to do that here at home. You know, we're all neighbors, we're all friends, and we may have differences of opinion, but that's okay. And so I'm doing it again because I want to be on the school committee, I want to pay it forward, and I feel I bring a lot to the table with my experience from the school committee to be able to help our challenges today. So I promise you that I am not losing my mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We've received another question. Thank you for the Charlton Board of Selectmen candidates. And looking at my order, we're going to start with Patsy, and then Pete, and then Steve. A common theme has been there are a lot of big decisions ahead regarding budget, schools, public safety, etc. Considering town meeting has a voter turnout of less than 5% annually this past May, how do we increase voter voice in town meeting decisions? And would you support a representative town meeting in place of open town meeting, which is our current format? So we'll start with Patsy.
When I first got on the select board, I think that was one of the main discussion points. How do we get more people to show up? 'Cause as much as we can talk to people, if you don't show up and vote, we're pretty much making the decisions. We thought, the joke was, do we bring food trucks to voting? Maybe people will come just for them and then happen to stay for the meeting. Do we have to make it into a party? How do you attract people to the schools to come and vote? And I think we put signs up. We all, on social media, we're all over the place. We tried hard over the last couple of years, and it just doesn't seem like it's working. So I think it's very important. Maybe we start in the schools. Maybe we start with the seniors in both high schools and sort of drill that into them. Community, come and vote, make the decisions. The new generation seems to be very involved in politics. Other than that, do I want to stop the way we do? I love our town meeting. I think it is the most, to have people all in one room making the decisions and voting is awesome, I have to say. And I have friends that live in, obviously cities, and they just don't understand when we talk about it. It's just an amazing thing, and unless we had to change it, I would never want to.
Thank you. Pete, same question? Considering our voter turnout?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% support open meetings, and I think they're valuable. Unfortunately, we don't get the voter turnout. We don't get the voter turnout at town elections too, unless we have a polarizing topic. So, how do we make it more attractive? I think we just have to continue with the socialization of the importance of, of items that are at the agenda for the town meeting. And, we've done, Board of Selectmen in the town has increased on social media. We have it it's up on the library billboard, but I think continually socializing it, just get the word out how valuable people's voices and how they can actually make a difference. It means a little bit more for me. I'm involved. I've done my time downrange, so it does. We the people, we're governing our town. So I feel that it's everybody's responsibility to be involved, and if they choose not to, you can't Monday morning quarterback decisions after they're made. Then.
Steve?
Yeah, we've talked about that on social media and at meetings and almost ad nauseum, how do we attract more people to town meetings into town elections. If there is a polarizing topic, we do get a larger turnout. Maybe we create a polarizing topic. Maybe we're going to put a nuclear power plant behind the Charlton Middle School. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't agree with a representative town meeting. I do not agree with that at all, because that would bind people. People go, if there's a topic they're concerned about, they're going to go to a town meeting. That would prevent them from doing that, and they would be able to pick and choose. And then it goes back to the old saying, hey, if you weren't there and didn't vote for it, really, you don't have the right to complain about it, in my opinion, right? Although they're going to complain anyway, but be involved, just be involved. We've been pushing that so hard on social media. I had one person tell me, why do you guys keep telling me I have to go to town meeting? I'm not telling you personally, I'm just announcing and telling other people. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe it is a food truck, maybe it's, I don't know.
Well, back in the day when town meeting began, there were fines if you didn't show up and you were expected at town meetings. So there's a new revenue source for the town.
Yeah, good luck collecting that, Mr. Constable. It would be-
Thank you. Stefan, you have a question. Do you have it in writing or is
This
this?
is the moderator, let me
Moderator.
clarify a little bit. There was, from all three candidates for select person, there was, I think, an inaccurate statement made. I'm wondering if I can get it.
Clarification? Can you share with me what your
Sure.
concern is?
All three have said nobody wants to pay more in taxes. And that is a absolutely false statement. I have been wanting to pay more taxes in this town for years. And I keep hearing that, and I think it's misrepresenting, I hope, more than just me. I have stood up at town meeting and presented checks. And 1 year I actually had people behind me presenting checks. I would like to hear that statement made. Many people may not want to pay more taxes as opposed to nobody.
Thank you for your opinion on that. So I think the question in there that I would translate for the Board of Selectmen is, do we have, in your knowledge, any additional information on the will of the voters relative to taxation and possible overrides? Because the override is how we achieve an increase and/or an increase in the base tax rate. So, Steve, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, Stephanie, what's your address? Let's start with that. I don't think we,
It's in the phone book.
no?
Public is in the phone book.
I don't think any of us said, well, I didn't say today that no one wants to increase in tax rate. I said, there's no appetite for an override. Your taxes are gonna increase every year.
That was the first statement, that all three have said, nobody wants to pay taxes.
So
Nobody wants to.
we have, this is, yeah.
Well,
we
all
have-
right.
Maybe, all right, but
I
people,
wouldn't bring it up if I didn't.
So my question
Yeah.
to you, Steve, is do we have information on the will of the voters, or do you have a sense, what's your sense about the will of the voters to pay more in taxes and or approve an override to do so?
maybe that's a question for town meeting. Maybe we ask what they want to do and let them go. My gut feeling, just from based on experience, is that when the fall tax bills come out, you can read it all over social media, and we see the emails, and a lot of them aren't happy. But I don't know, I don't actually know what demographic, I don't know if that's 20% of the town, or 80% of the town. I don't know if it's, but look at Dudley. Right? They're going for a 33% tax increase with an override. Nobody wants to do that, Charlie. Maybe that's a that would be tough. That would be a tough sell. As far as, yeah, people, you're gonna see a 2.4% tax increase probably every year for the next 10 years. It's just below 2.5. Hopefully, we don't have to do an override in the years, but we can see the planes coming. The schools certainly, Pepperville would certainly cause one. And I don't think that's a bad idea. If the state's going to kick in 50% of the money. Yeah.
Have questions?
Huh?
Pete?
I stand corrected if I misspoke. I'm just going on the experience of the people that have come to me during this campaign about taxation. You're the first person that I've heard verbalize that they want to increase taxation. So I stand corrected. You're correct. Yes, I have. I know about your attributes.
Interesting enough, I was riding the wonderful horse Max through the woods, and somebody who was hiking came up to me, a resident, and said, "Hey, you're a selectman." Of course. And they said our taxes are too low, and you should increase them, and I'd be willing to pay more. And I was floored because I've never heard anybody say that before. And I agreed that our taxes are very low, and we're eventually going to have to increase them. We should have been slowly increasing them, said for the last decade. Maybe they're a little low for me, but we do need to increase our taxes to fund our town. Do we want good roads? Do we want our firefighters to be in a station that the roof's gonna fall down in? Do we want to be able to pay people who are knowledgeable to run our town? Town administrators, the chief of police, our planner, if you don't pay them competitive salaries, we lose them. And we lose that infrastructure, that knowledge in our town. So yes, I guess I misspoke.
Thank you. I'm going to pose a question we just received also, which I'll pose for all 3 Board of Selectmen candidates, but to each speak to your contributions to the town during the past year. So we'll start with Pete, and that was you were elected to the Board of Health just last year. What would you say your contributions were to that board and any specific accomplishments you can share with us? And that same question is going to come to Patsy and Steve afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually 2 years ago, this May, that I'll be on the board. I've attended all our meetings. I've missed one meeting in that course due to a scheduling conflict. As the Board of Selectmen, it's not a sole board. There's 3 members, so we participate together. We've had a lot of issues surrounding COVID, navigating the end of the pandemic, which is ending May 11th per Biden. We've had a lot of pending issues with the landfill and water testing. This Treehouse keeps us extremely busy with their food trucks and licensing and all that. The Pike 90, we've closed Freshly there multiple times due to unsanitary conditions. We've coordinated with the state coalition around tobacco sale to minors. So the Board of Health is very active and very busy.
That's it.
So what I have done individually, I can't actually say as a board. We have clearly, there's a lot more transparency. Everything is online. It's easy to find any information. The website still might need to be tweaked a little bit, but it's easy to find things. Anything from planning board plans to any documents we touch, they're up there. They're on our website. And that was one of the reasons why I ran. I think there's better communication. There's joint board meetings where everybody gets together, and so the boards are kept updated with what everybody else is doing. I think we, with Amazon coming in as a board, we negotiated well with them, and it was a very smooth process. So again, I'm very involved in this town. I already went through in my opening speech. My favorite is now the Scouts. So the Assistant Scoutmaster, I'm very proud. I'm very proud that I was part of the team that brought in the first female Scout troop. And my daughter's the oldest, and she will most likely be the first female eagle in this town. And we talk about her being on the wall, getting her name on the plaque. I love the committees. I love the Old Home Day Committee. It is my favorite committee. I try to contribute as much as I can. Fay Mountain Farm, I didn't even honestly know what it was until I joined that committee. I did push to get those windows in. That might have been my personal achievement. Other than that, I step up. I'm in this town all the time. I talk to people. Funny enough, my daughter's bus driver stopped to my house last night to complain about something, and I have to deal with that. I'll have to follow up.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, wow.
This is your,
Coming up with my
contributions.
Yeah. Let's see. I'd say during my 3 years, not just last year, but I've really, number one, I've got a program, so I've attended every single meeting, so I get a gold star on my head for that. It's probably the only time in my life I've ever had a perfect attendance for anything. And then I've also engaged myself. I go to a lot of other meetings, and if I can't go to them, I watch them on Zoom. It's all part of the learning process. I think one of the most, a lot of, it was a busy couple of years, but one of the most interesting things that I was involved in was, I was a select board member to negotiate the Amazon contract. And that was a whole lot of fun. They came in with their lawyers, and we were there with our assessors and our lawyers, and that was really interesting. You know, open it up, I said, opening up that meeting, I said, all right, what's the fire station? He said, no. I said, just let you know, but that's where we're gonna start. And then we ended up, so with the tax agreement, we ended up giving back $11 million for the decade. $11 million in a tax discount for the first 10 years, with a $9.8 million community grant from Amazon itself for town improvements. But hardly even a TIF, right? But it was an interesting process. And I enjoy seeing it come to fruition. I mean, we appointed a police chief, there's a dozen other things, but I think my favorite one of the last would be the Amazon.
And Kenny, you've served previously on the school committee. What would you describe as your accomplishments and contributions in your last term?
Thank you. So the last term, the biggest accomplishment, I guess, was I was chair of the school committee during the pandemic shutdown. And so the accomplishment I can say is we guided the schools and got us through the pandemic, however stressful it was for all of us, and really tried to bring stability to the community by being very transparent and public with our meetings. I know that our live stream meetings had over 1,000 people viewing us on Vimeo, and so that was one of my biggest accomplishments, was stability and structure during the pandemic. We also instituted a reading program, or the school committee approved purchasing a new reading program, and from what I'm hearing from many teachers and parents and students, they're loving the program completely, and they just love the new initiatives being brought forward, and it's the first time the district has had the same reading program structure between all four of the schools, both in the 4 elementary schools in Dudley and Charlton, so they're all on the same page, which is another great accomplishment. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the school committee, and I enjoyed being a member even during the stressful time of the pandemic. I hope to return to continue to move us forward and keep our schools and keep improving our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the select board, so we've asked a lot of questions, and these are complex decisions that need to be made, so it's very hard to give a black and white answer sometimes of yes or no, but I think the voters want to know when they elect the select board, they want to know your thinking about budget decisions. And so this question is, would you advocate for drastic cuts that would need to be made in order to stay within the confines of the town budget, or a 2.5 override to fund the schools, and/or a debt exclusion to fund a new fire station, and why or why not? So these are really, I thank you for the question. It gets right to the heart of some of the toughest issues in this town, of decisions that cost a lot of money. And the question is, how do you feel about it? So we're going to take it in this order. Pete, Steve, and Patty for the next question.
Yeah, so I'll start with the debt exclusion first. In my opinion, I believe that the debt exclusion should be reserved for capital projects. Honestly, yes, I would support it to the fact, because then it would go to town meeting for the voters to decide. And the same with, the 2.5 override. If we get to the point where that's the only solution, then sure, let's put it to the voters to make that decision. And if they vote it down, then we have to re-strategize and figure out how we're going to make things work. So yeah.
All right, and why or why not in there? Do you have a why?
Yeah, my why is because the people of Charlton need to make the ultimate decision. So if it's not just the board making the determination that we're gonna have an exclusion or an override. If we get to the point where The only way we can come up with a funding for a fire station is we need an exclusion that, yeah, I mean, we have to bring it to the town meeting for the town to determine, you know, whether they want to proceed that course of action or send us back to sharpen our pencils.
Thank you. Steve? Would you advocate for drastic cuts to stay within the
That'd be
confines
no, yes, no.
of the town budget? A 2.5 override to fund the schools, or a debt exclusion to fund a new fire station?
I would not look for any cuts at all. I would not support that. It's so difficult and it's so expensive to get people on board and to spend the money to train them, talk to police and fire, even the education for the people in the town hall. That's important. You don't want to lose those people because you can take another decade to get them back. As far as the schools, yes, I would support the schools. We're talking about the project. The schools. Yeah, of course we have schools. As far as the fire station, I'm on that committee, fire substation committee, and I don't know how many people know about it, if they know about it or not. It's a good group. It's in the feasibility studies now. The thought process is a small 4-bay fire station, manned, in front of Charlton Middle School, which is a nice location to pull in near the schools. It'll alleviate the problems at least for the next decade. We'll get rid of Station 2, we'll get rid of that, the Quonset Tower ones. And they're saying it's probably maybe $8 to $12 million, so it's not the bond on that would probably be $600,000 a year. It's not a $28 million fire station, so I would definitely support that.
Okay, we have time for, I'm looking for questions that are framed slightly differently. I don't want to repeat questions that we've already asked. So I think some of these will be covered in our closing statements. I have one last question for a school board, and that is, could you describe your feeling on the importance of the relationship between the superintendent and the school committee and the school administration in general?
That's an excellent question. I think it's very important for the school committee members to have a relationship with the superintendent. Whether you disagree or not, it needs to be a cordial, respectful relationship, because the superintendent is not going to want to stay if the superintendent doesn't feel supported by their own school committee. Now, that doesn't mean that the school committee doesn't have oversight over the superintendent. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what kind of person would want to work for an employer under negative circumstances. For those of you who may not know, we have had 4 superintendents in the past 8 years. I don't think that sends a very good message as far as folks who want to stay and be the leader of the district. And I'm not saying that school committee, all school committee and all the people in the community. I'm just making the point that it's very important to have a relationship with the superintendent and work collaboratively and go up to district office, have a meeting with the superintendent and the administration, director of finance, and get to know the administration on a deeper level. Because the school committee is there as the voice of the people and to bring the voice to the administration. And the administration are the ones responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of the schools. The school committee does not have that role. So it's important for the school committee to manage and kind of oversee the superintendent and administration and let the superintendent do the job that the superintendent's hired to do. So having a cordial, working, collaborative relationship is vital for continuing the growth and progress and improvement initiatives within the schools. So it's important that we do that, and I support that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with our closing statements from our candidates, and we'll each have 2 minutes and be able to describe again for folks, why should the voters of Charlton vote for you, and what kind of change do you hope to affect in your elected position? And so we're going to go in the order of Patsy, Pete, Steve, and then Kenny.
Yeah, I think first. I have years of experience in this town. I grew up here, been involved in the town. I know the people. I talk to. I'm just exposed to so many of our residents. I'm very knowledgeable. I'm well educated. I work in audit. I deal with constant different things all the time. Compliance, NCAA, power plant compliance, hazard materials. I have all this knowledge from all the years from my real job that I can bring back to this town. Analyzing information and making good decisions based on the information that's brought. Being able to judge that information to see if it's correct or not, because often you have people sitting in front of the boards trying to sell you the bridge, and you have to know to be able to ask those questions, and it's not always comfortable to do so. I do that every day. Not well always looking. I love this town, and I promise to represent everybody, and I ask you for your vote on May 6th.
Yeah, thank you. As I think we all heard today, there's a lot of competing priorities in town. I experience that on a daily basis as a CEO of a local hospital. And, I think we have to look at how we evaluate everything coming in and make realistic decisions. We're not going to please everybody every day. But we have to look, where we can find our strengths and what are our weaknesses and how do we mitigate our weaknesses. There's a lot. Charlton is changing. That building on Route 20 is already the start of that. So we're in the middle of change. So I'm a strong believer that we need the infrastructure in place to support that. With any building, you don't start with the mezzanine level. You make sure you have a strong foundation. And our foundation is our school system, is our public works, is our public safety. And we just need to make sure that they're adequately funded and that we're meeting the needs of our citizens. So if you like what I said, or if you have any further questions, I'll be out in the common between now and the election. Feel free, I'm on social media, to reach out. I'll respond as quickly as I can. And I would definitely appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I just want to say it's an exciting time to be in Charlotte. It seems like things have really woken up in the last 3 or 4 years, right? And everybody's talking about it, everyone's excited about it. Me personally, I feel my job is only halfway done. And I want to do a little more, I want to finish it through. So I really appreciate your vote on May 6th. And if for some reason I don't get elected, I'm coming back. So I'm going to get it. But I do care about the town. And I think all that excitement going on down there, it's going to be a whole lot of fun in the next few years. And financially, the town is in good shape. It's not FinCom, the way FinCom says it goes. We're not in great shape financially, but we're better than most. That's how I suppose it. So that's a good place. So if we're talking about overrides and debt exclusion things, that's probably, the town is managed very well. Town hall is good. So please vote for me on May 6th.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you. So I thank you for having me here today. Thank you to Kathleen and to Noreen and to folks putting this together. Please vote for me May 6th at the polls. I'll be there all day. We'd love to talk with you and meet with you and come see me. I have a social media page on Facebook. Please find it and reach out to me with any questions you may have. Anything you want to know, reach out to me. I bring experience to the table from being a former school committee member, and I believe strongly in building relationships. We're neighbors in the community, and it's important that we work together, and we shouldn't And I'm not blaming anybody for this, but sometimes it does feel like we're pitting boards and committees against each other, the schools and the fire and police and board of selectmen and FinCom, and we all need to work together and be neighbors and collaborate together. We may have disagreements, and that's okay, but let's work together on building relationships, get to know who we are as human beings, as neighbors in the community. I think once we get to know who we are as people, I think that goes a long way in building a relationship. I'm running again, just as a reminder, for the one-year seat in the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee, and I ask you for your vote on May 6th. Please come see me, and I'm to be representative as the Charlton representative to the regional school district. And again, reach out to me, and I hope to see you at the polls. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So again, just reminders for people who are here and those watching the tape afterwards at home. May 6th is the election in Charlton. May 15th is the town meeting in the evening at 7 p.m. Both are opportunities to vote and express your citizenship here in the community. I want to thank the candidates who participated in today's forum and for taking all of these questions and being willing to respond and being so generous with your time. I also want to recognize and thank the candidates who couldn't be here today, but who are also taking their time to run for office. That includes Karen Riopel, Michael Tiberi. So Karen is for Board of Selectmen. Michael Tiberi is for the school district for Bay Path. Sherry Westbury is running for library trustee. Jamie Delovo is running for Dudley Charlton Regional School Board. Amelia Morin is running for town assessor. Donna Nalon is running for cemetery commission. Don Clay is running for planning board. Sherry Zanka is running for recreation commission. Geraldine Babineau is running for housing authority board. Matt Gagner is running for board of health. Fiona Bycroft Ryder is running for library trustee, and Nicole Enberg is also running for Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee. So thank you to all of the folks who are willing to put their names out there. Some of these, if not all of them, are thankless jobs. So we really appreciate people who are willing to step forward and get more engaged. And you can be more engaged at town meeting and at the polls. I want to thank David Smolsky, our expert timekeeper today, for Kathleen Walker for all of her work in advance to round everybody up. And I would like to thank our studio audience here today. Thank you all for being present, and a big thank you to the candidates. Have a great day, everyone.